Welcome to the latest edition of the LFC Delaware podcast. Today we've got Roy Yates with us. We're excited to have him. He is one of the original people who started a supporters club here in the United States. So we're excited to hear some of his stories. But as usual, before we get started, we've got a couple of announcements up front. Turn it over to Charlie to talk about koozies.
Koozies, beer huggers, coolers, whatever you call them. Get them while they're hot. Get in touch with Paul Gaskell. Members, there's a link through your email newsletter.
Yes, lfcdelaware@gmail.com if you can't find them anywhere else.
LFC, there you go. Or else Facebook link, all of that. All of the usual avenues. But 80 degrees this week in my locality, so I'm sure you'll need one soon.
If not 4, which is what we're selling them in, groups of 4. So
At least.
So last week we were really fortunate to have Alicia from the Anfield shop on the show, and I think we want to do a public service announcement for them because she talked about how business is obviously not as great as it would have been had we been winning the league right now, which certainly would have been the case.
Right. Yeah. So they still have just a little bit of merch left from this current season, which will finish. So if you didn't get your shirt yet from this season, you can get it. But something that Alicia mentioned that we want to reiterate is if you know someone who is a Liverpool supporter, like if my wife happens to be watching this, what you can do is get a gift card from the Anfield shop. And that way, when the new Nike kits come out, if someone actually wanted to buy one, they could buy it with the gift card and still be supporting the Anfield shop.
Awesome. And indeed, any gear that might possibly come out that was alluded to celebrating a Premier League win, that too would be an option for your gift card. Okay, cool. Obviously, we've got usual suspects with us. Sean, Tim, and Charlie. Is my link a bit... Oh, that's not great, is it? Technical difficulties.
Those are mine.
Right. So we're going to get started actually with Roy and talk to him. So tell us about your first memory of following Liverpool. Let's kick it off with that. Can you hear me? No.
First to Anfield was him.
Yeah.
Was in 1971, I believe. I googled it, September 7th, 1971. We played Hull City in the league colours by Chris Lawler, Steve Highway, and Brian Hull, and that was the first game we ever went to. So I was 8, and then just following that, obviously the FA Cup final in 1971, where we got beat by Arsenal. With the infamous Charlie George goal in extra time. Probably the first time I ever cried watching a Liverpool game. I was brokenhearted. So, they're probably the first 2 memories. But obviously, since then, so many, good and tragic, and some wonderful, best times in life, and some of the saddest times in life. So, I think that's what supporting Liverpool is all about. It is it's been a journey, throughout my life. I mean, I've been watching Liverpool since 1971, seeing some fantastic games and some great memories, and met some wonderful people, not only players but obviously supporters from around the world as well. So.
Nice. I do remember crying in 1971 after that game. Yes, because we'd taken the lead, right?
Yeah, took the lead, and then there was a really spawny goal. Their first one came off the knee. I think maybe like Larry Lloyd or someone just bobbled over the line. Then Charlie George hit one from 30 yards, which I've been fortunate to have Ray Clements over here as a guest speaker a couple of times. And he says, in his defense, he thinks he would have got it, but it took a slight deflection off, I think, maybe Emma Hughes' knee, and it just took him away from him, and that was it at the end. But I think they learned a lot from that game. I think Arsenal were probably just about the better team, but that was where we sort of moved on then after 1971, obviously to successes in Europe and the domestic competitions too. So was a hard pill to swallow at first, but with all the success that follows, you take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll talk a little more later about 77, but bring us forward a couple of years and help us understand how you started the Florida Supporters Club.
I've always been in travel and tourism. I used to work for a British tour operator called Thompson. I used to work in Spain in the summer and Austria in the winter. Then I was on the cruise ships, the cruise director for a British tour operator called Air Tours. And I did that till 2001. And my very final cruise was with 10 of the 1966 England World Cup winning team. It was actually, the cruise was put together to coincide with the final game at Wembley in 2001 before they knocked it down to build a new Wembley. So we had 10 of the players, actually 9 of the players on board. Bobby John wasn't there, but 9 of the players on board the ship. And then on the actual day of the game, 2 of the players, Jeff Hurst and Alan Ball, were at Wembley. And then they got the helicopter from Wembley down to Southampton in the UK. And then we sailed from Southampton, did 2 weeks around the Mediterranean down to the Canary Islands. I mean, it was fantastic to be able to watch the 1966 World Cup final with Sir Jeff Hurst on one side, me and Gordon Banks on the other. It's things dreams are made of. And because I was cruise director, I was doing all the emceeing. So I got to know the players really well. So after 2 weeks, that was my final cruise, as I said. So I went back to the US then. We started the Liverpool Supporters Club in 2001 at the end, about November time. And then I decided to bring over 5 of the 66 World Cup players to do a sort of promotional trip, and which it was going really well until 9/11 hit, and obviously it was just a disaster because we had sold quite a lot of tickets in certain places, but you're relying really on traffic, mainly in Florida. And in hindsight, I probably should have cancelled the whole thing, but we'd booked all these flights, all the accommodation, all the venues. And I think I said to you earlier, Paul, there was one event in Tampa. It wasn't the supporters group then, it was way before that. And we walked in with 5 of these legends from the England 66 World Cup winning team. And there was probably more people on the stage than there was in the bar. It was heartbreaking. But you learn a lesson. And I became quite good friends with Roger Hunt, because Roger Hunt was one of the players who came over. So Roger Hunt then put me in touch with the Liverpool Former Players Association, as they were known then. This before it was 6 times and different other stuff. So from 2001 onwards, we brought at least one player over to the US every single year. So, we were lucky to have Emily Hughes, Ian Callahan, Ronnie Whelan, Ian St. John, basically all the legends, Ray Clemens, up to this year when we brought John Barnes over. So I've had a nice relationship with the former players. And, it even though it is a little bit of work involved, to go and have the opportunity to have a week or 10 days with these legends, and you're sitting in a car talking with them about games you actually remember watching, it's fantastic. So it's a pleasure to be involved with them. So yeah, over 19 years, we've been bringing players over to the US.
Cool. So a couple of things for younger viewers. Roger Hunt was the leading goal scorer for Liverpool before Ian Rush, so by quite a long way. And John, and as people who've looked at more than one of these podcasts will know, I'm a huge fan of John Barnes. So I'm going to go down that direction. What was kind of one of your favorite memories in terms of his visiting the US?
John Barnes?
Yeah.
John Barnes was really interesting because most of the players talk about their careers and funny stories, whatever. And John Barnes didn't. John Barnes focused more on the current team and football, and not just the racism side, which he's quite heavily involved with in the UK. He's a very eloquent talker, John. I don't know whether you know, his father was an attaché from Jamaica. He went to Sandhurst, the army school in the UK, and actually went to Sandhurst with Camilla Parker Bowles' husband. So John is mixed with like royalty since he was a little boy. So he's a very eloquent speaker, John, and he's got lots of strong opinions about things, but as speaker, different but excellent.
Wow, awesome. You guys don't have a particular legend you'd like to focus on?
No, of all the names he mentioned, John Barnes is the one I recognize. So,
yeah.
So
they're also different, to be honest, Paul, because I mean, to say have you had favourites, it's hard because they've all been great in different ways.
Yeah.
There was only one player who was tough, and he's not with us now. God rest his soul. I won't even mention, but out of probably 17 players were brought over, just one, and it was just hard work, but it wasn't terrible. But you have personal favourites. Ian Callaghan, I was with Callie for 2 weeks, and he actually attended my 3-year-old's birthday party, and he was just a gent. Probably one of my favourite speakers, I've got to be honest, and he's not been a great help, but hopefully he's over it again, is Ray Clements. I would say if we can get Ray Clements over again, I would strongly suggest having. I mean, what a wonderful speaker. He's one of those guys, he commands a room, and he speaks, tells some great stories, but just fantastic. A real legend. And then you've got funny people like Ronnie Wheeler, Bruce Grobler, Ian St. John, legend, hysterical, brilliant. Dave Fairclough, very interesting as well. So all different ways, great, but it's just a pleasure because all of them have added to the history of Liverpool FC. And sometimes it's hard because people say, well, can't you bring over, Vladimir Smites or Diamant? Well, you can do, but with all due respect and just picking those names out, a lot of those players, they couldn't talk for 45 minutes to a group of people. Yeah. It's not what they do, where these former players, they have wonderful stories, and even if you don't know the players, there's enough ways now of Googling players and, going on Facebook to see what these people have done. And I think it shows a slight lack of respect for the history of the team sometimes when people say, oh, I've never heard of X, Y, Z. I say, well, he won 3 European Cups for us. How much more do you need to know? Yeah. Well, anyway, I suppose that's the way it is. You get younger fans, and it is what it is. So.
Yeah.
So when you do these tours with the players, is it mostly in Florida, or are you doing like East Coast tours?
No, we've gone all over the US. All up the West Coast to California, Seattle, then obviously New York, done one Baltimore, Florida. Everywhere. The only place we haven't really done is the Midwest, really, and no reason why we haven't. It's just never came up. I mean, obviously the difficulty is there's a financial aspect to it, and that falls on the supporters group. And as I say to everybody, if you once I tell them what the sort of proposed figure is going to be, including flights, hotels, fee. If you don't think you can do it, don't do it. Because when I first started, I had so many sleepless nights worrying that I had to come up with X amount of dollars. And you think any sports group who's thinking about doing it, make sure that you're happy, you've got the finances in place, and you'll have a great time. If you break even a week before, you've got $800 in the pot. I mean, because somebody's got to come up with that money. Yeah. But it's a great thing, and if you can afford to bring a legend over, and also Carlsberg have been great in the past. They've helped out financially with it too. So it doesn't all fall on the sports group. And obviously you do raffles and you can do silent auctions items which the players will sign. So there's ways of funding these things.
Right.
Wow. It's something that we looked at, but I think at the point we looked at it, it was out of our price range. So, but maybe that's something we want to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would always say if you can guarantee 50 people at an event, you should be okay.
Oh, well. So we sold almost 100 tickets for the Anfield Rap event that we're going to have before the pandemic hit. So yeah.
Well, the former, I'm thinking about, because it's really interesting to being able to engage with all these former players. But do they talk about, the boot room, like Shankly and Paisley, and do they talk about the culture there and differences between the two, or
I mean, what's great is that the culture back in the 60s and 70s, and to a lesser extent in the early 80s, is so different than now. I mean, there's a great story, which I think Ronnie Whelan tells, that they played Middlesbrough on the last game of the season, and we'd already won the league, so we're going up there, and one of the Middlesbrough players had just bought a pub. So the player said, "Is there any chance you could pop in?" So they were going to go the night before, but something happened, they couldn't. So they had to go on the morning of the game. So it just wouldn't happen now, but this is true. They go to the pub, and basically half the team were slaughtered. They go on the pitch, they beat Middlesbrough 1-0. Ronnie Whelan is I think it was Ronnie, on the bench. And Bob Paisley says, get your kit on, you're going on. But Ronnie said, don't, no, I'm okay. He said, get on the pitch. He said he got on the pitch and he threw up on the pitch. I mean, it just wouldn't happen these days. But, it was, and years ago, as Paul will tell you, we used to see all the Liverpool and Everton players in Liverpool city centre, in all the nightclubs, pulling all the girls, But that was before social media, so you couldn't do that. It would be on Facebook and Instagram before you know it now. But then it was just the accepted thing, and nobody said it. But things are a different culture now, completely.
Yeah.
So, turning our thoughts to more modern events, when was the last time you went to Anfield?
The last game before the virus.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
The Atletico game.
No, the Bournemouth.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really weird one, Paul, actually, because I said I've been going to Anfield since 1971. It was the most weird atmosphere I've ever been. The crowds were terrified. It was so nervous, and you're playing Bournemouth. I mean, you should, be celebrating a 25-point lead, but you could tell the crowd were nervous, and it affected the players. If Bournemouth had got that second goal where it hit the crossbar, I think they would have beat us.
We'd lost that prior to, right?
We just lost to Watford, yeah. Was that the early kickoff?
Say again?
Was that the early kickoff?
Early kickoff,
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Didn't help either.
No. Need an extra beer to kind of, calm the nerve.
Yeah. No, it was strange. But it'd be nice if you get it won, but obviously behind closed doors now, not exactly how any of us wanted it, but it'd be nice to get it won and do it again next year.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's so one of the things that's happening right now, and because we're not watching any Liverpool football, there's more of a chance, I think, to reflect on some of these things. Is obviously on Monday it'll be so we're recording this on May 23rd. Whenever you're watching it, so on Monday, 2 days from now, it'll be the 15th anniversary of Istanbul. And I need a calculator. The 43rd anniversary of the first European Cup win in 1977 in Rome against Borussia Mönchengladbach, for those Bundesliga followers out there. So let's start 43 years ago. What is your memory of that game?
Memory of the game. First, I didn't go. I was a bit devastated. I couldn't get a ticket. I would have gone. What I do remember, Paul, is a lot of my friends who went, they went with their fathers. And what you got to remember is a lot of these fathers had supported Liverpool from before the Shankly days.
Yeah.
So really, they've gone from the late 50s in the second division to now the ultimate in Europe. And to go to the eternal city of Rome and to beat a very good Borussia Mönchengladbach team. I and the way we did, we played very well. It was fantastic. There's a really good story. One of my father's friends, who's now sadly well passed away, he supported Liverpool since his 1948, I think it was, and he went to every single game, home and away, until that 1977 Rome final. He went to Rome, we won the match, and he never went to another Liverpool game again.
Wow.
Because he said it was the ultimate. It'd gone from the second division through the first division, won the cup, won the league, champions of Europe, thank you, and never went to another game. Incredible, it's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it just shows you how it affects on people's lives. That he was happy. Almost, it was the Shangri-La. He'd done it. Thank you very much. Good night.
Yeah, it's funny. My dad stopped going shortly after the Rome final, and I've never really understood why. But you know, I mean, I know he was at the 1950 FA Cup final. Liverpool lost to Arsenal. Just to be clear, I don't remember this. And I went with him to the '74 FA Cup final when we beat Newcastle. When probably for the first time, like they looked like a team that could beat anybody in that era. But it really wasn't, and I've said this before probably on one of the other podcasts, it really wasn't till they beat Saint Etienne that it really struck me, at least, that we could win this thing. That really was I was at that game, at the Saint Etienne game, and I don't remember much of the game, but I remember the crowd, and it was, the whole place felt like it was vibrating just with noise, and but that team was special. But then we had the thing about Keegan leaving and us wondering, you know, like we finally won it and we're going to lose our best player. How are we ever going to survive that? And then, of course, you know, Kenny Dalglish signs, and you know, history then tells you that this team could be even better, as they got better and better after '77 with him, and then with Souness.
You do forget that, like 4 days before the game, we got beaten in the FA Cup final by Manchester United, and a lot of the fans went directly from Liverpool to London to Rome. I mean, it's a hell of a journey, especially most people did it by either coach or train. I believe the conditions on the train were horrendous. The bathrooms were overflowing. It was terrible. But obviously, when you win, you don't care so much in the end. But maybe that's why your father stopped going to the game.
So he did. So my dad didn't go to Rome, and I was doing my finals actually, like the day after the game. So I wasn't in a position to be able to go. But I remember people coming back telling me about the train journey being fantastic, you know, through the Alps, and so maybe it got glossed up. So I then went to Paris on the train, and it was the most god-awful experience. We were on this train for 24 hours because they didn't want us to be in Paris, like on the day of the game. They wanted to get us there as late as possible so that, you know, there'd be no trouble. And it was pretty bad, but you know, at least I could say I saw Liverpool win a European Cup.
Yeah, that's great. So then obviously Istanbul, and that was you know, I was honoured to be in Istanbul. I managed to get a ticket, and probably still the best night of my life, you know. And the journey to Istanbul was incredible. We went from Miami to London, Frankfurt, Istanbul, landed in Istanbul. Actually, when we landed in landing in Frankfurt, I'll always remember, because that was almost a hub for all the people flying internationally. And there was people from Australia, there was South Africans, there was even some South America, more Americans. It was just incredible. And the singing and the atmosphere in Frankfurt airport, it was absolutely incredible. And then obviously get the plane from Frankfurt to Istanbul. The one thing I always remember, we got a taxi from Istanbul airport. I mean, it was chaos when you got to Istanbul. And we had the name of the hotel. And we gave it to the hotel, the taxi driver. He said, "Oh, yeah, I know where it is." Okay, but no problem. And we would drive 1 hour, 2 hours. This guy's going to kill us. He's a terrorist or something, going weird. Anyway, he ended up, we were about 2 hours outside Istanbul in this hotel, which we should have checked out better. But we're actually on an old military air base. But there was loads of other scouts there. And then when we got into Istanbul on the next day, and everyone was congregating in this place called Taksim Square with all the banners up, I mean, you just knew something special was going to happen that night because the weather was spectacular. The sun was shining, everyone was in great form, everyone was singing, the air was flowing, and it was just brilliant. It was, I said, the day I enjoyed as much as the night. The day was just fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like Charlie's experience in Madrid, which we'll talk more about next week, just before we...
A little teaser.
Yeah. So my sense of so I wasn't in Istanbul, but a lot of what I've read and I highly recommend the Athletic piece written by James Pierce and Simon Hughes that came out today, where they relate the story through the eyes of kind of interviews they've done with players and a couple of fans, and it I think really captures a lot of different things, but one of them is like there's definitely some antagonism between some of the players actually, which is fascinating. A couple of who were left out of the squad and missed the open top bus tour, but also this one's for Charlie. The sort of mild criticism of Harry Kewell about like what he thought he was capable of and perhaps where he got to at that point in his career. Charlie's wondering how to respond to that, right?
Yeah, I to be honest, I didn't actually get to the end of the homework assignment in time.
It's a long article, everyone. It's very good.
20 minutes,
yeah.
20 minutes worth of reading in my household really needs to be planned across about a 4-hour period. But anyway,
yeah.
Look, hey, for the bit that I did get to that touched on that was that no one within or without the team really knew which team Benitez was going to name. And a number of these players didn't realize they weren't in the squad until an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff. So, yeah, that was interesting. And look, yeah, Harry Kewell, my all-time favorite Australian player, unfortunately, he didn't fulfill his promise while he was at Liverpool. But I still love him, and I still wear the jersey with pride. See, the problem was he had the wrong number. Liverpool should have given him his number 10, and all would have been well.
The one interesting thing that I think was that Paco was saying, like it was tactically, they played Kewell because they thought he had the pace to keep the Madrid defense honest, because they were saying that they didn't want any space in the midfield, and they thought the best way to do that was to keep the defenders kind of, respecting their side of the pitch.
And to try and
that's
drag...
why they paid Kewell, because he had the pace. Yeah. But
they were trying to drag Pirlo, I think, and Seedorf deeper.
Yeah.
I
think the biggest thing from the article that I just can't imagine working out was they talk about in the half, they go into the room, and was it Traore? They told Rafa told, just hit the showers, you're out. And so he's in the shower with the shower not even on, and someone comes and taps him on the shoulder and says, "No, just kidding, you got to get back in." Someone had pulled a groin or something. So he went through this big roller coaster of wow. I ruined the first half, but now I'm going back in again. I can't imagine getting back up for gameplay at that point.
Yeah, and that Madrid team was so good too.
It was Milan, Sean.
I'm sorry, Milan. Yeah. No, but Gerard talking about Paolo Maldini, I guess, was after the interview before the game, sort of gave him a little dig, saying, good luck tomorrow. Yeah. And Gerard said that's all it took. They think they have this one, and I mean, just the names throughout the team. I was watching some Kaká highlights over this, pandemic. We're all locked up. Yeah. But there was something online about just how good he was, and it was during that period of time. And one of them, I think, was a highlight. He took the ball from his own 18 and went the entire length of the pitch and ran directly past Messi with the ball. And so it's just like you forget how good those players were. That whole team was just stacked. But
so, Roy, tell us about halftime, because there seems to be some dispute about whether, like, kind of what the atmosphere was. I've heard different stories.
Yeah, it is a weird one. As you said before, Paul, even at 3-0 down, I still believed. It was weird because throughout the first half, my brother-in-law is a very, very bitter blue. I mean, the worst type of blue. And I was getting texts, you red gobshite, and all this. And in the end, I turned the phone off. When we scored a first one, I turned it back on. I said, we're on our way. And he never replied again for the whole game. He's awful, real bitter blue. But I really did believe, and when the fans started singing "Never Walk Alone" at half time, there's a real nice thing where Kelly Dalglish says she's never heard "You Never Walk Alone" sang the same as it was at half time in Istanbul, and she's right. It was more like a pride that we mightn't win, but we're here and we love you. And it was, they say that the players heard it and all that, whether they did or whether they didn't. But she's right. The way "You Never Walk Alone" was sang that night, it was incredible. And when you think that, 3/4 of the stadium, the Atatürk Stadium, was red, imagine what it was like. Everybody was singing "You Never Walk Alone." It was slight defiance, slight, okay, we're going to get beat, but we're going to have a good time. And as soon as that first one went in, I really knew we were going to do it. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, the article does a really good job actually of kind of building if you can stay with it, it does a really good job of kind of building the transformation. And it talks a lot about how Gerrard gets angrier and angrier about different things that he's seeing, in terms of like them, like Milan players. And he doesn't necessarily name anybody, but he kind of feels like they've already decided they've won and they're trying to make Liverpool look foolish.
Yeah. I know that there's a good thing where they're saying all the Milan players had the hair done perfectly at half time. They all came out styled. So that would wind you up.
Yeah. The article casts doubt on whether any of that's true, or more whether it was like here's what we need something to make ourselves really go for it. I have to confess, and I don't know if I've shared this story before. My 2005 Champions League final story is a little not so inspiring at all, because I actually ended up in New York watching the game. Turns out at a bar full of Italians, and at 3-0, I was like, they did great to get here. I don't need to see them humiliated. And I know I've shared the story with some of you, and I'm like, what can I do? Oh, let me go to a museum. And my wife calls me, and she's like, how's the game going? It's like, does she know that that's really not a good question to ask me at this point? And she's like, she said, I'm just checked, it's 3-3. I'm like, no. What? And first thought is, she thinks that's a joke, right? She thinks it's funny. And then she tells me who scored, and I know she's no idea who Vladimir Smitsa is. And then it has a ring of truth.
Now did the other players. They didn't know who he was.
Actually, in the article, Carragher was very complimentary about Smitsa, actually. He felt that Benitez didn't play him in the right place, is kind of his argument.
Yeah. I think with Smitsa there was a couple of things. Supposedly in training, he was absolutely brilliant. It was unbelievable. But when he got on the pitch, he probably wasn't a Liverpool player. One thing I remember, he never finished a whole 90 minutes, as long as I know. He either started and got took off, or got took off. Never seemed to play a whole 90 minutes. But as a player, supposedly, technically, he was incredible.
Yeah. And I think that was Carragher's thing. It's like he played these occasional games where you're like, why can't he do that every week? There was definitely a sense of that. So, any other reflections on these wonderful anniversaries?
The other thing that I liked from the article is that, like, when I think of the Istanbul final, the one of the things that comes to most people's mind is the way Jerzy Dudek was doing like the wavy knees thing. And apparently that was Jamie Carragher's idea, because someone, blanking on his name, had
Bruce
done it.
Grobbelaar.
Yeah. So he went to him and said, maybe you should do this just to throw him off a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Jamie Carragher knows all.
Yeah. And it worked. So.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. So, any final questions for Roy? Maybe we'll wrap up with a couple of any Facebook things we can think of.
Well, I have a question for you. Last week you were talking to Alicia about different jerseys.
Yep.
And I've got this jersey here, which I've never wore it, and it's horrible. But I want to know where it's from. Oh. It's got some sort of motif on the side.
Oh,
any idea? It's awful. But
it's not the worst. I think we decided it wasn't the worst.
There's worse than this?
Yeah, there's a purple one, like the purple quarters thing.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the running. I'll give you that. It's in the running.
I think this is worse.
Orange. Yeah.
Orange, white, and black. It'd work well in Philly here.
And
I could wear it to a Flyers game and I'd just fit right in.
Yeah, you can wear it to a Flyers game.
See, the colors aren't that bad. The worst part is, like you said, that whatever those like tribal armband tattoos.
Oh yeah!
Are,
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
That's the reason a lot of guys who got tattoos in the early 2000s wear long sleeves now.
Yeah. Do this, Paul. Any of your people watching this now, if you write in and they got the right answer, I'll donate it. They can have it.
Oh,
raffle it off.
And the question is, what is the shirt? Is that the question?
What's the shirt?
What is it? Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple of nice shirts here. Paul, what's this?
I'm pretty sure Mignolet must have worn it at some point.
That is the goalie. Yeah.
I don't know.
You also at my age, Paul. This one's signed by Benfica Eusebio.
Oh wow, that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Eusebio was a fine player.
Yeah.
And this one is signed by 10 of the England 6-6 World Cup winning team. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And then the last one, which is my favourite, the 1965 Cup final. All the players signed it.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
That's a beauty.
Who was your favorite player from that team? Is it from like that era?
It's got to be Ian St. John because he's actually a good friend of mine. So, and as a speaker, absolutely fantastic. Hilarious. And even now, still in great shape. He boxes most Mahonins. Fiery character, but great. Roger Hunt, I said we had no pleasure, just a gentleman, really. Unfortunately, never got a chance to meet Shankly. So.
Roger Hunt would be a popular one, right? Because he was like a kind of a rock star in that team. Scoring the goals. But.
He was the good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Nickname was Sir Roger Hunt, I think.
Sir Roger Hunt,
yeah. And actually, I don't know if you were on the official supporters club call last Wednesday, Roy, but Peter McDowell from LFC TV.
Okay.
And he was asked like who was his favorite person to interview, and his answer was Ian St. John.
Really?
Because of his fond of stories.
Yeah.
Like he talked about one of his big regrets being how he fell out with Shankly and never really kind of.
Yeah.
Well,
the problem was that, and you think you're surprised with Shankly, he never actually told Ian that his time was up.
Yeah.
And the way it was done was really bad because when you consider that really it was 2, maybe 3 players who the club success now is founded on. That's Ian St. John, Ron Yates, and Roger Hunt. But you'd probably say Ron Yates and Ian St. John, and obviously along with Shankly and Paisley. But at the beginning it was those, but really for the way it was done, it was quite shabby. Yeah. And the Saints, it would hurt even after all them years because when he wasn't there that long. The Saints was there like 10 years.
Yeah.
But in that time, he built the foundation along with the other players where we are now.
Yeah.
So, and going back to when Gerard Houllier was at Anfield, the Saints used to say a few not too nice things about Gerard Houllier, and what was going on behind the scenes, not sure. But the Saints actually got banned from going to Melwood, and that really hurt him. Once Houllier left, it got sorted. But that's true. And to treat a legend like that, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of Ian St. John stories. My best friend at school used to take a picture of Ian St. John to the barbers to have his hair cut the same way. So this is the 60s when, you know, the Beatle haircuts or whatever. He wanted his haircut like Ian St. John. But Peter McDowell tells a story, that St. John's story, about how at Christmas the players used to get a turkey, and how valuable you were to the club was indicated by the size of the turkey. And like for years he would get like the biggest, and he knew his time was up. He said the year he came in, like got this like really small thing, and he kind of related this. It's like dawned on him that okay,
time is up.
I may be leaving soon. Yeah.
Another funny one story is in training, Jimmy Melia, who is over here. I mean, Jimmy Melia was there before Shankly, and Jimmy's been in Texas for years. I've had the chance to meet Jimmy. He's still coaching Jimmy. I mean, must be in his mid-80s. Yeah. Anyway, Jimmy Melia took the Saints out in training once, and the Saints quite fiery, and he went in the dressing room and was chasing Jimmy Melia around Anfield, trying to get him. You know, I wouldn't want, even then. There's been a couple of good things on YouTube with Ian St. John knocking players out, because he used a bit of boxing. Ian, he's a very useful boxer, and it's a good story. Chasing Jimmy Mealy around Anfield. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, it's probably time to wrap up. So we're going to do our usual closing question of, you know, what is the thing this week that you've seen in the kind of especially the Liverpool world, that most caught your attention? And I'll start with Sean.
I mean, well, the first thing would be Charlie's love of Dejan Lovren, but
okay, I think we have to wrap it up there.
No, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I guess there's more like Timo Werner stuff, but that's not really new. I guess there wasn't too much new that I saw this week. I saw today that La Liga is definitely going to try to restart. I think it's June 8th, so that'd be one. But yeah.
See Jordan Ibe getting his hair cut now. He's decided to leave Bournemouth.
No, I didn't see that.
He got the club were not happy with him not doing the self-isolation, but his contract was up anyway in June, and he can walk away, and he's walking away. So that was 16 million they paid Liverpool for Jordan Ibe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Michael Edwards.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. Shame the kid had promise. Well, my takeaway was Virgil van Dijk could score in the Kop End goal from standing in the Kop End runway. Yeah. I tell you what, that guy is incredible.
It may not come up during a game, but you know, it's.
Was this in training?
Yeah, it was a video.
Okay.
I shared it beyond an hour before the beginning, so you should have had time to catch up on that one.
I was reading that article.
I saw it.
I don't remember if we had talked about this on the podcast or offline somewhere, but there had been an article that Pedro Chirivello had been offered a 5-year extension, and we wondered what that meant for Margot Grujic. And it seems like Pedro has turned it down, and he's more interested in steady playing minutes. So it seems like he's ready to move on. Yeah. So maybe Marco will have a better chance of making it into the squad.
How's Marco been doing, Tim? I like him.
This morning, or yesterday rather, he didn't show up too much. Oh. A week ago, he was kind of all over the place. So he's a little bit more sedate this week. But I think playing in Germany has definitely been beneficial for him, especially the way that a lot of teams there play. Oddly enough, how Klopp wants this team to play with the high press and all that. So
I remember that game he played at Wembley, that pre-season friendly against Barcelona. He was incredible.
Yeah.
You look like Yaya Toure he was. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I don't know. Obviously, Klopp or whoever sees things we don't, but I can only see what from that game. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and it's getting to the point where it's going to be fish or cut bait Is that how it's said?
Yeah.
He's what? What's he? 22 now?
23, I think. Yeah. Right. So I'd read James Pierce's piece this week where he said that both Wilson and Gruitch they were planning to sell them for like decent sums of money. Now, that in the same article it also says they've changed their whole philosophy on the summer because they're not going to bring people in. So maybe that Gruitch has a place. I don't know. We'll see.
I've even heard that Lallana may be extended. Klopp is keen to extend Lallana just for that same reason. It's free. You know? So, I know one particular member of this panel that will be absolutely over the moon about Lallana continuing.
I mean, in this market, it kind of makes sense at this point. You got to kind of scrap. They're probably scrapping some of their plans that they had for the summer initially. So
just give him 1 or 2 more years, and then he can go to MLS after that. We'll be good to go.
Be a Union, play for the Union.
Nah, he'll go play with Beckham.
I think the Union are a bit too cheap, aren't they, for Lallana? So, Roy, what did you notice this week?
Obviously, besides Jordan Ives' haircut, well, I was just obviously like everybody. Just every morning, I open the sports pages on the internet and just hope there's good news or bad news about it restarting and when it's going to restart. I thought it was interesting about Korea using the inflatable blow-up dolls.
That did get some traction, yes.
Yeah.
I think they were much higher priced sex dolls than blow-up ones. Just
really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see a hairy ass blow-up Scouser. In fact, Paul, I've got to thank you because for the last 3 weeks I've not had a shave, and up to about 2 hours ago I was like the Scouse Grizzly Adams. The wife made me have a shave for this, so thank you guys.
When she's watching it back, she's going to be like, you'd be like, oh, that other guy was like, he looks a holy mess.
So, brilliant. Well, thanks very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you for joining us. Yeah, the one other kind of, we've had a theme going about when are the Liverpool masks coming? That was the thing that I noticed today, that apparently masks are available in the Liverpool store. So I actually have reached out to Alicia to understand whether we can get those through the Anfield shop. More on that next time. Okay, I'm going to end the recording here. Thanks again, Roy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, and